part of the challenge. I tried to politicize it, make it a real left-wing thing. There was a danger that maybe people think it's, right-wing. It was important to me in my work was to say this is a very left-wing thing.
Mm-hmm. In those years, did you have the consciousness that you were in the middle of this big historical movement that would change the music of the century?
Yeah, I think it was the most exciting place to be because you knew that things were happening that people would talk about in many years' time and that were changing the possibilities for certainly young people in England. That's what I really knew. Mm-hmm. Punk spirit did open a lot of possibilities for people.
Mm. After all these years, when you think about the punk movement in those years, what do you feel that you learned in those years?
I think you learn to be yourself, and be proud of being yourself, and realize that's the only real strength you have is to be honest to yourself. If you start playing around off that idea, you end up, in a bad way. I think, punk was a lot about risk as well, taking big risks, which I think, is the thing you really want to do with cinema, if you can, take a lot of risks. And also try and remember that you should treat each movie like you know nothing. So you learn how to make that movie in the process of making it. You don't think, I've already done loads of movies, so I now know how to do this movie.
No methods?
No method other than,
No formulas, maybe?
Yeah, I'm sure I have a method, which is, as I say, get very, very depressed, try and kill yourself, and then, climb out of this pit of snakes. But also remember to laugh at yourself, particularly, because if you don't laugh at yourself, everyone else will.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that before, that in general in your movies and in your video works, we can see that there's always like a sense of humor fooling around these huge stories. How do you deal with that?
Well, I like a sense of mischief, like I'm afraid, I was a very bad boy at school. I used to make trouble with the teacher, make fun of the teacher or whatever. So I still feel I'm still like that a bit, I like the idea that I think a lot of people when they get older, they're encouraged to lose touch with what they were when they were young. And I think it can be embarrassing, that old people riding motorbikes and whatever they do. But I think it's good to not lose touch with who you were when you were formed as a kind of creative person or an aware person.
Can we say that that is like the punky spirit in yourself? Like trying to maintain your origins, something like that?
I think so. I think there's something good about being a rogue. In English there's a word, a rogue, or there was a dandy, which is someone who dresses very
fancy,
but quite provocational, quite subversive. Some ideas as a dandy. And the rogue is a different thing where you are more mischievous. I'd rather be a rogue than a dandy, I think. A bit of both is good, I like, the fashion thing of punk was very important too.
Yep.
And I think...
It was a fashion movement too.
Yeah. And it was an exciting movement visually for people as well as musically.
Have you seen something similar to the punk movement nowadays?
Well, I saw, early hip-hop, I think did a similar thing for, urban black American kids. Felt a little bit like punk. Obviously very different, a different culture and different world they came from, different problems. But, I certainly remember Public Enemy and those bands feeling like they had something in common with Pistols and The Clash. I did like the summer of 1989, had a good feeling in England where, they kind of reinvented the hippie summer of love, and there was a sense of people really coming together that was exciting. It's hard, you know, in a world that's so bombarded with
new movements every day.
You know, little niche. You know, they got a million pigeonholes they can put you in, and the point is to try and bring that together. You know, but it's like this divide and rule. Put you in this little. You like this kind of music. This guy likes this music. You must never come together. Which is why it's quite nice, these big festivals like Glastonbury, where you have all the kinds of music, and the kinds of people who like the different kinds of music are really mixing together.
So at the end, it's the people that unite us to music.
Yeah. I mean, the music's not the most important thing, it's the people. And my films are not really about the music, they're about the people.
Su legado es como más bien haber cubierto todo lo que fue la explosión del punk en Londres con los Clash y los Pistols, así que estaba muy bueno.
I guess it's nice the Chilean people. They did ask some questions, which was good. I really like the people here because they seem less self-conscious in a way than the people I'm used to.
Con festivales como Inédit se fomenta mucho la creatividad audiovisual en Chile y como que se le da una plusvalía, se muestra que hay algo de valor y que merece ser puesto sobre el tapete y ser llevado hacia adelante.
What I find very interesting in the movies you're showing here, Glastonbury, Madness, and Oil City Confidential, is that all of these movies you always take care of the history of the place. How do you work with history? Do you have a research person that makes this work for you?
Well, I studied history at college, so
Yeah.
I am really a historian in some ways. But
Yeah, I can notice that in your work.
Yeah. But yeah, a good researcher, a great researcher is really great, you know. You know, I like doing all the work as well. You know, I think that I was trying to say one of the great attractions for me about filmmaking is you have to keep learning like you're studying still. You know, if you do a subject, you have to try and know everything you can, which is really wonderful to have that opportunity to still learn like a student, you know. But I've had a really good researcher on the last 2 films I did.
So can you tell us a little bit about the research process of Glastonbury? That is a huge film about this film festival,
Right.
music festival.
Well, we filmed for 4 years, over 4 years ourselves. So we filmed 400, I think 500 hours.
Wow.
But then we put an advert in the paper saying if you've got any footage of your own over the years, over 30 years, maybe you send them to this address, you know.
That's
And
beautiful.
I was like sitting there, I wonder whether anything will turn up, you know. And then one envelope with a VHS came. I was like, yeah, this is good, it's working. And then like 2 weeks later, I could hardly